Everybody, welcome to another episode of Psychic Diaries, but this one's going to be slightly different. I'm Michael Lamport, the producer and narrator of the psychic show Rescue Mediums, and with me is Jackie Dennison, who's the host of Rescue Mediums and the co-owner of Feathers Academy in Northwich, England, and we have Edna Dargy with us, who is the head researcher for Rescue Mediums. And so we're just going to launch into this. We have three of the leading people from Please Bring Me Home, which is a society dedicated to trying to find missing people and obviously bring them home. So we have Nick, Matthew, and Melissa. So welcome to the three of you, and let's get started.
Hi everyone. Can I just make something really clear right from the very offset of this interview, is that Please Bring Me Home. Then you're not concerned with sort of the criminality of the cases, are you? The objective is to bring missing people home. So to bring loved ones home or to reunite them. So this is not about catching killers, it's about bringing those missing people home. I just, before we even started, I just wanted to clarify that that is the objective of Please Bring Me Home.
That's correct, yeah.
Brilliant. And we're going to put that right at the very end as well, you know, so if anybody has any tips, any anonymous tips, they can contact you directly with any help in bringing any of your missing people who you have on your website. They can contact you through your website. It is anonymous, and they can do that very safely, knowing that, you know, that's not going to be repeated to anyone other than to the relevant authorities to help with those cases.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So you all come from very different backgrounds, don't you? Completely different backgrounds. So how did this all start?
We get asked that question all the time, and you think it would get easier to answer. It's just so hard to put it into one small context.
Yeah.
I think what it started at was just an inability to understand how a case can go so cold, and how it can be so long, and that just snowballed into what it is now. It started in 2016 with the idea to try to locate Lisa Maas, and then when Matt and Melissa came on board is when we actually put a name to it, formed Please Bring Me Home, came up with a good set of goals and a mission statement, and in hopes that we can put a plan together to help families become reunited with lost loved ones.
How do you find these sources for the missing people? Are you involved with the police at all?
Matt, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, we're not involved with the police. We source them out ourselves. A lot of tips come in saying you need to speak to this person. He or she may know something. And so then Nick and I, Melissa, will track down these people and we'll just knock on their door or phone them up, depending where they live. Some of these people now could be across the country. And then we just try and reach out to them and make a connection and make it very clear, like you said, that we aren't concerned with the criminality, with who did what. We just want to locate the missing person.
Are most of these people very accommodating, or how do they receive you?
Not at all. Some are very good. Some want to help. Others certainly do not want to help, and that's for a variety of reasons. Perhaps they're very close to the suspect or suspects. Perhaps they may have been involved themselves, and at that point we weren't aware of it. but many are very helpful. Many, like us, just want to see closure. There are missing people like this in every region of the world, where people just seem to drop off the face of the earth and just vanish. And it's a puzzle which everyone wants to solve. So most people are very helpful, but the closer you get to the truth, the more people tend to be a little more cautious about what they say.
Because maybe they were involved in it somehow.
100%. Yeah, we have spoken to people who we believe were involved in a number of these disappearances, either as a participant or perhaps they were told something by that person. Yeah.
Huh.
And something I just want to reiterate quickly as well, something that Matt had said. It is not only us that goes to question people. Now we have like what we call investigation team members, and they're paired with a researcher, and they're given 2 of our cases to just become the expert on. Go interview, go plan where you want to search, and those 2 people become the experts on those cases rather than all of us being involved in every single case. So it began as me, Matt, and Melissa just going to talk to everybody, because that's really all it was. It was just us 3 for a while. So, yeah.
Well, I guess you all know that one of the episodes of Rescue Mediums that we did, which we called Burvey, found a missing person whom I believe is in your radar too, Lois Hanna. And we didn't find her, I'm sorry. We detected something about her, and that's still ongoing and way open, and we don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, that was actually, that episode, once we started looking into, because Lisa Maas was our first case, which Nick took on, and then Melissa and I joined. And then Nick had the idea that, we'd put a lot of attention and work into Lisa Maas, but there were a lot of other missing people, unfortunately, in our area who went missing, and Lois Hanna went missing 2 weeks before Lisa. And the 2 are often very connected because of that. So when we started looking into Lois's case, I think it was early 2017, I watched that episode for the first time.
Huh.
Lois is someone who is very dear to our hearts, obviously because of how everything came about. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are on mediums, psychics, and all of that, and that's not what this purpose is about. But I do know that from my point of view, when I feel that I connected to Lois Hanna, is that the information that was given to me in a premonition form, when we went to Burvey, we weren't called in for that purpose.
Right.
So the information that I personally received was somebody who had been involved in a beauty pageant that was missing, and Christine also had information about, there's somebody that was missing. It's been a cold case, and so that's how we got involved with Lois in the first minute, and that has never stopped. And so it's something that's very, very dear to my heart, and I know everybody who was involved in Rescue Mediums also. Do you think that there is, and you don't have to answer this, of course, do you think there is a connection between Lois Hanna and Lisa Maas?
No connection, no.
You don't feel so?
No. They're connected by age. Both females lived about an hour apart. They could have crossed paths at some point, right. but no, the 2 in terms of their disappearances, not connected. No.
So it's coincidental with the timeline, just like it would be with anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, back then there was a lot of hysteria and worry in the community because it's a very small area. that there was a connection, and that was looked into seriously by the police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also came in because at face value, of course, it looks like they're connected. Similar circumstances, similar age, within 2 weeks of each other in Grey and Bruce County. And we also came in with, okay, well, let's form our own opinion. And we took our time with it, and we all agree that it's completely separate suspects for each case and circumstances.
You have an absolutely amazing team of people that you've put together now, from expertise in lots of different areas. Like, and you have the dogs that you bring in searches. You have somebody who is involved in forensic archaeology as well, I believe.
Nick?
Melissa, you want to tackle that one there?
Sure, if you want me to. Yes, we had a lot of outpouring after the W5 episode aired, and a lot of people wanting to reach out and help in any way they can and volunteer. And we had people reaching out from all of those areas. So people with cadaver dogs offering their services. Prior to W5, we had been using cadaver dogs already. And we use a lady by the name of Sherry Hall and her dogs, and that's been fantastic. And she volunteers her time and expertise and her team. And we also have a lady by the name of Leela. I can't pronounce her last name for the life of me. Maybe Matt can do that one.
Wadamanuik.
Okay, or Nick, yeah. She's fantastic too. She was with us before W5, and she is with the University of Toronto, the forensic department there, and yeah, they're fantastic too. I know Nick has been sending images of bones that he's found and things like that since about 2016 when he first started, sending them to Tracy Rogers, actually, at the forensics department there, and it just kind of took off from there. They formed a relationship with us, and it's been fantastic. So yeah.
No, that's really great.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to ask the three of you, and I don't want to impose it all, but have any one of you had a missing person in your life?
Yes, me. Yeah, Matt, me. And it was talked about on the W5 episode briefly. It was my dad. Wasn't missing very long, so my heart really goes out to these people who have loved ones who are missing for decades and decades. I cannot imagine for a second what they're going through. I had a very small glimpse. My father, we got a phone call one evening about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, that he was missing, which you never expect. And so, he lived about 2 hours from our house. So my wife and I got in a vehicle and we drove down to his house. And the first thing we saw when we pulled into the driveway was his vehicle. So how could he be missing if his vehicle was there? So then my first thought was he's gone for a walk in the woods. Maybe took some alcohol. He had to think. He had left a suicide note, so it was clear at that point where his headspace was at. So I was hopeful that we could still find him alive. By that point, he was deceased. In fact, before I got the phone call, he was gone. But I searched that night in the woods, calling for him. The most horrible experience of my life. And that probably, led to me reaching out to Nick at some point. That and the fact that I had a very brief experience with looking for Lisa Maas back in 1990. So I did search for her for one day. And then my father going missing and passing away. Those are probably two of the biggest motivators in me emailing Nick one winter night.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's horrible. Yeah, I mean, when people go missing, there could be myriad reasons. And I mean, it could be kidnapping, it could be assault, it could be just individuals going like, I'm out of here. And that's a really difficult task that you three have ongoing and ahead of you to see what the heck are the circumstances around these missing people.
Yeah, and that's, so while we're not involved in the criminality, and we're certainly not, it is important to understand as much as possible about the facts of that night or that day, how that person went missing, who were they with, were they by themselves and they just walked out into the woods. Like, well, with my father, he actually called a taxi. That's how he got from his home to the hotel, about a half hour away. It didn't even dawn to me that he would have called a taxi. Not for a second. I thought maybe someone picked him up at first. Maybe a friend had picked him up, and then I thought, no, he must have gone for a walk, which led me into the woods for a number of hours until the police located us and told us the bad news. So yeah, so understanding those final moments as much as possible will help you determine where they might be.
So you mainly deal with cold cases, and obviously with yourself. And I did watch the show that you were on, and I heard you talking about your father on that, and I could see how it still has such an emotional impact on you. So you know from every angle how this feels. You know from you've had somebody who's missing, you've gone through that awful feeling of trying to find out where they are, and then being delivered this news that is incomprehensible to try and determine how you would feel with something like that. And that is within this time frame here. And the cold cases that you deal with as a group, those people that went through that at that time, it's still in their memory now, isn't it, as much as it was at the time that it happened. So how important is it to get as much first-hand information as you can from the people who were there at the time in order to help you to put a case together?
We have a intake process now,
Right.
and we actually have an intake leader that if somebody were to email us and say, hey, can you take on my family's, my missing family member's case, Candace Huber, she would then contact the family, and it's a series of 20 questions, and then while you're asking those 20 questions, it will also lead into other things as well to help get really good direction on it. As soon as that intake is completed and put up on our website, it's assigned to an investigation team member. And then that investigation team member takes that intake, goes through it, and comes up with their own additional series of questions as they build that relationship with the family member. So, yeah, a lot of the times, though, I'm just thinking of examples. A lot of the times, they leave out things, especially the colder the case, and when we check in with them, like in maybe 6 months, they'll tell us something, and then it'll like blow our minds, like, oh my gosh, how did that not come up in the intake? Well, it's because they're constantly living that moment that you described. I think that you never get better with it, you get better at living with it, maybe.
Right.
So yeah.
How much success have you three had at like finding missing people? I'm just curious.
We helped, we ran a search that located the deceased body of Terry Shope in Owen Sound. And we also took on the case of Nolan Panchishan, and a tip came in through our website, which led to his remains and subsequently charging 2 people with his murder. I look at success differently. So we're asked that question all the time, and success, in my opinion, is being that squeaky wheel, getting these cases back out front again, putting it out in the media, getting people to talk about it. You know, there's tons of ways to get things moving forward. And even if we're not the ones that find them, and we do a story that jogs somebody's memory and they give that to police and they locate them, fantastic. Anything we can do to get these people located. So.
No, I agree with that, because often I think when people go missing, like sometimes they can get lost in the ether. Like, you know, like your memory stops. Not the people that know the people, but you just go like, oh, yeah. No, I remember that. And I think you're right. I think it's so important to keep it in the forefront.
It does not take long for cases to go just stagnant. You know, so cold, like the term cold case is such an interesting term, because a case can go cold after 2 weeks. There's just nowhere to go on it. And that's exactly why we got involved in Nolan Panchison's case, because it was stuck. Like, they had nowhere to go. And whereas I like to draw the parallel between Lisa Maas and Lois Hanna, because if you're in if you have a specific lifestyle, it may not take the same approach as you would if you had a different lifestyle. If you had a 9-to-5 job and you didn't show up and you had perfect attendance, that's a concern. If you sometimes went missing for days at a time and didn't check in with people, you're not going to get the same attention. And that's precisely what I believe happened with, you know, Lisa and Lois.
You know, I think as well with particularly with those cold cases, is that when you highlight them in this way, draw people's attention to it, and as Michael said, people go, oh yeah, I remember that. But you know, there's also that fear factor as well, so that people who maybe would have been afraid to come forward in the past, now that time has elapsed, maybe the person they were afraid of, maybe that person has now passed on, or there's not that fear factor in the same way. So now they'll come forward and say, I didn't want to say anything before because I was frightened for myself, or was frightened for my family, but now I can say this. And so being able to come to you, maybe they would not go to the police, but they would come to you. And I think that's great that you've got this anonymous tip that they can just come, they can, if they want to give you their names, they can do, but if they want to do this in an anonymous way, I think that's brilliant that you've done this, because that certainly helped in Nolan's case, didn't it? Because I've been on your website and I've had a look at all these different, you've got a whole section there that is dedicated to Nolan and how you were able to find him in that way. And that was from this tip that came forward that helped you find him. And even though he wasn't a cold case, it was you were able to locate his body, which brought a lot of closure, I'm sure, to his family. I saw his father speaking about that, and how grateful the family are for that closure.
And it's and it worked so quickly. I think that was the thing that shocked me. The website was maybe a month old. That was it. And we got the tip in. Initially, we were a little reluctant to take on Nolan's case simply because it wasn't a cold case, and we were working on Lisa and Lois. But Nick and I, Melissa, spoke, and we saw the need there. If my father had to be missing, 3 months later, 4 months later, I would have wanted our website to feature something. So, so it made sense. And the fact that the tip came in so quickly, I think shocked us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question of our head researcher, Edna. When you do research about when we come up with missing people, how difficult is it to get the answers or a direction to go in?
That's that's a very good question. I guess as I would suspect you do, Melissa, you need to get the facts out there, and if it's possible to talk to people that were involved, newspaper articles, although there's always a bias with the news media, but the news articles that are closest in time to the event often might disclose some things again that don't appear at another time. If it's possible to speak to police to get reports, that's always beneficial as well. And then, of course, I'm working with our psychic mediums, and there's clues coming up in that way. And there's always the possibility that they can be verified out of all of this information. And I guess it's my job to find the facts and the truth in all of the information that we have.
Yes, and honestly, that's exactly what I do, and I do that using whatever method I feel is necessary, including mediumship as well. So to match those facts to what I feel they can be combined with, it may be something small, as simple as a name or a road or whatever that may be. If I can match that and tie it in, then I will most definitely use it. I also will use microfiche, or the archives, if I have to go back and find articles that pertain to that period of time. Then I will go ahead and do that. And it depends on who you're looking at for a suspect or a situation. You may also come across arrest records of people in that area too, that may connect to something to do with that case. And then you're going, oh, well, isn't that interesting? And you're finding that the more these pieces come together of the puzzle, as I'm sure you're familiar with, that you can add those in, and the light bulbs are, and the things are just starting to go off and going, oh, well, that could definitely be a possibility. And then always keeping the facts in mind of who's who in the zoo, as I like to say, or and where everything fits and ties into it. So
how do the police receive your input? I don't mean how do they receive it. What do they do when you say, okay, we found this out?
So the police, actually, it's very dependent upon which department we're working with. I find some of our cases out in the western provinces that are using the RCMP. The RCMP at this point, I think, tends to be more receptive to our help, and they've been very willing to take that information. And we always have to remember, a lot of it is a one-way street. So we may be giving some, but you don't always get much in return, if any, right? You kind of almost have to be able to read between the lines, or, put together what they're saying but not saying, or it really depends who you're working with in terms of the police. So in Ontario here, we've spoken to some really receptive OPP sergeants and constables and detectives and people like that who were very willing to take our information, and thankful for that. And we've had others that weren't as receptive to that, and not sure if that's just a little bit of professional jealousy, or if it's just kind of that we have to tread lightly and not trample on their toes and get in their ways of any current investigation or anything like that. And I'm not sure if Nick or Matt has anything else they want to add to that, but because they speak a lot more to the police than I do through correspondence. So
yeah, like Melissa said, it is a very one-way street, and that's fine. I mean, they have their protocols. They have to keep things, information from the public for obvious reasons. And even though we may have figured out some of that information, they're unlikely to confirm it. But in most cases, they have been good to work with. There's always the rare and odd case that Melissa mentioned, but in most cases they're receptive and they take the information. What they do with it after that, we have no idea, because for obvious reasons, they don't share that with us.
Right.
So we are hopeful that they would take it and they would work it. But we're not privy to that information.
But it
I have no
builds up.
comment.
Sorry.
I just said I have no comment.
It builds up an information base for them. Because I remember when we did an episode of Rescue Mediums in Nova Scotia, and there was, Jackie will correct me if I'm wrong, or Edna will, Rhonda Olson?
Wilson.
Rhonda
Wilson.
Wilson.
Rhonda Wilson.
And
Yeah,
what
Rhonda.
happened is that Jackie had some psychic ideas about, you know, where she was or what she was doing. And I went to the RCMP detachment in New Minas, and I actually spoke to the officer that was in charge of the case, because he was there. And he put me in the interrogation room and left me there for like 45 minutes, which I didn't know what to do with. I was sort of like, oh yeah, is that what you do? I don't know. Like, what have I seen on TV? You know, like, don't look guilty. And he came back and he said, no, you're clear, but how do you know all this? So I told him, and as Melissa said, he was very receptive. As an RCMP officer, he was just very receptive. He just went, okay, and can you send me any more information that you have? So it wasn't a negative experience.
Yeah, and that's great to hear, because it's very, and exactly what Melissa said, it is so dependent on who you get on the phone. And back when we all began this, they were not open-minded at all, because, you know, they believed that we were going to go away and they're just interested right now. They're going to see how difficult it is and back off. And then when detachments started to see that we're not going anywhere, that time has come and gone for us to stop. That's when they started to become a lot more receptive to it. Well, these guys are likely going to stick around, so I may as well just listen to what they have to say.
Oh, that's great.
Your background, Nick, I mean, you've missing youngsters, haven't you, in the past? That was your job in the past, was searching for youngsters who had gone missing. So you would have worked with the police in those sort of cases, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we worked hand in hand with them, and they were thankful, because it doesn't take their resources. What would happen is we would bring in foster children from northern Nunavut and northern Natwashish, and you know, they would just be culture shocked, unfortunately, into Peterborough, Ontario. So a lot of the time they would run away. They were teenagers and they would run off, and we quickly formed what we called the crisis team. We were dispatched to many different situations regarding the foster children, and there was about 90 of them under this umbrella in various houses for behaviors, but for the most part it was runaways. And you'd be dispatched immediately. The foster parents would contact us first, and then we would get in the car and contact the police and say, we're going to look, we'll keep you in the loop. And we had a 100% success rate because we were so quick.
Wow.
And we were, you know, none of the foster children were located deceased. I think the longest one was about 16 hours missing before we located him. But, you know, teenagers are a creature of habit, I think. And they're going to a Max Milk or a Tim Hortons or at a restaurant to bum a cigarette. So that's why it was a really good process. And that's where I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
We were good at it. I felt I was good at it. So.
And when you talk about that, I understand that you went to Fleming's. Oh God, what's the name of the university in Peterborough?
Sir Sanford Fleming College in Peterborough.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, because I'd done some work in Peterborough, and I actually used to go Anyway, and watch a band at the Red Dog. But
Oh yeah, okay. No,
um,
I loved Peterborough. It was a great city to live in.
it is a great city, isn't it? And it's changed so much now, positively. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's a great success rate, Nick, though, you know, like 100%. And there's not not a lot of people could say, well, actually, we've got 100% success rate. We found everywhere and they were all alive and they were good. And that's a great basis for you to bring something to bring into this, is that background knowledge of how to look for people, you know. So, and I think all of you bring something from completely different angles, and it works. So this is how Please Bring Me Home sort of has gelled together, because everybody's got their own expertise, and it just works like that. And you've had to take more people on board, haven't you? Because it's sort of growing and growing and growing, and because you just worked within the area where you all live, but now other people are asking you to help in other areas. So what can the general public do if they want to join you, if they want to help you? What sort of person are you looking for help you in the organization?
I think we're looking for, you know, 3 or 4 different types of individuals. So people who want to be an investigation team member, people who want to be a researcher, and then of course those get paired together to look into the cases. So they're usually right at the forefront. We're looking for individuals that can assist with fundraising, because we are a not-for-profit. Like the majority of the public is very generous with donating lodging for searches or donating equipment or various things, but for the things that we need funds for, we do need those to continue to come in, and someone to help us with IT, like just computer savvy, database forming things we definitely need a bit of assistance with. So those are kind of 4 things we're looking for right now, and they can do that by just simply emailing Please Bring Me Home, calling us, sending us something through our PO box, whatever mean they want to, contacting our tip line as well.
And I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but I always say too that in the midst of all of those factors, that people that are passionate definitely trump all those things. If you're passionate about helping, to just helping people and have an interest in helping the missing people, or you're passionate about trying to help bring closure to a family, and you have an interest in or a keen interest in those things, but you don't necessarily have a background, to me those things, they trump everything. Is somebody's passion and willingness to to help out other people.
Absolutely. If you could be the top of the investigative pedestal, if you will, but if you don't have the passion and the drive to do this, none of that matters. And I completely agree that without that passion and drive, you're stumped. So
have you got any possibility, either from the Canadian federal government or the Ontario government, of accessing any funds?
We've attempted that a few times. There's just no funding available for something like this. I think it's a different idea. It has to be, the only thing we could have fallen under is if we were an active search and rescue organization. We're not really. We're a search and recovery, I guess, but it's so much more than that, because there's a multiple steps. You got to put stories out there to get tips in. You got to go and talk to people to get tips in to run a search. So it's a very different process. So
one of the major areas of funding, which is probably really good for you guys, is like just the public, just to say, okay, here's $10 a month. Here's, I mean, I spend $9.99 a month on Netflix. I'd rather spend $9.99 helping people find missing people.
Yeah, we do get lots of that in. We do get lots of stuff from the public. We just did a silent auction a month and a half ago, I guess, and it was, you know, we brought in $1,500 from that. Wow. That we were able to use for searches and stuff. So,
as I say, from my point of view, I'm more than willing to help behind the scenes. You already know that. I've already told you that, and I will do as far as any other individuals want to help. You don't want to be inundated by a lot of people who will go, oh, I've got this psychic thing and I need to give it to you, because it has to be fact. It's not about feelings. This is not about feelings. This is not, I'm feeling this. This is about what fact can you give that can be, we can go away, research and go, oh, yeah, absolutely, that ties in, that sort of thing. So I just want to thank you all for the amazing work that you do. And I can see your organisation getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I really hope that people get behind you to help to fund, to help you in any way, shape or form that they can, so that families can get closure and you can bring these lovely people home that need to be home. Whether it's alive or whether it's closure in that you find their bodies.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's just important too for these families to know that they're not forgotten about, and that, you know, people are still, you know, like, I can't even fathom that, you know, you have somebody gone missing, you know, for X amount of years, and it just feels like, you know, time has stopped for you, and the world's revolving around, but there's nobody that's there to support you anymore. It feels like nobody's left, you know, wanting those answers. And I think that's such an important part of it too, is just that these people know that, that we don't want to give up on your case. We don't want to forget about your loved one. We don't want to, you know, and that's really important, I think, for these families to know, is that somebody's still actively looking, somebody's still caring, somebody's still out there.
I think that's great, and you guys are doing an amazing job of that, and I agree with you. You just, you know, we're here, and yeah, you want to help the families.
Yeah, and I wanted to say as well, just from us to you three, to thank you very much for doing this, because this is anything helps, and sitting and having this conversation with like-minded people, and using your resources to assist us, we are very grateful for, and I know the families are too. So,
well, I mean, we will help you in any way we can, except we can't help you with the rain in Owen Sound.
Yes, everything. I have a hole in my shed I need to fix today.
And just to reiterate what Melissa and Nick said is, I think what we do is we provide hope. You know, if you can boil it down to this one word, I think it's hope. The hope that somebody will say something, that somebody will find something, that someone just remembers their loved one, and if you keep their memory alive and you keep talking about them, it will, in some cases, trigger someone to remember something, someone to say something.
Yep.
In a lot of these cases, somebody does know something. They may not realize it. They may not want to talk about it for various reasons, but there comes a time when they may be comfortable, and so if we can be that conduit to allow them to feel safe and to come forward and provide some information, then we'll continue to do that. But yeah, I think hope is what we do. Hope is what we try and give to these families.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
I do too.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Thank you.
We are going to put the link to your website at the end of the video. Anybody wanting to leave any tips to help, anonymous tips, to help with any of the cases, or simply just to look at the work that you do and how they can get involved and how they can help, then then that's what they can do. Just take a look at that and keep up the good work. That's all I can say.
Thank you, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
very
much.
much.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank